wake up. Ever felt the chill of humanity's darker side creeping in? Perhaps you've experienced a moment where the actions of another left you questioning the very essence of human nature. What if I told you that within each of us lies the potential for both good and evil? So let's dive into the shadows of human evil, dissecting 9 compelling factors that shape our appetite for darkness. Milgram's experiments, conducted in the aftermath of World War II and the Nuremberg trials, sought to understand how ordinary individuals could become complicit in acts of extreme cruelty and genocide under the influence of authority. The setup of the experiments was deceptively simple. Participants were instructed to administer electric shocks to another person, actually an actor, whenever they answered questions incorrectly. As the shocks increased in intensity, the actor would scream in apparent pain, pleading for the experiment to stop. Despite the actor's apparent distress, the majority of participants continued to administer shocks when instructed to do so by the experimenter, who wore a lab coat and presented an aura of authority. Many participants expressed discomfort and moral conflict, but ultimately obeyed the experimenter's commands, highlighting the power of authority to override individual conscience. Imagine being in a room filled with people who all seem to agree on a certain viewpoint or course of action. The pressure to conform can be palpable, driven by the innate human desire for acceptance and belonging. This tendency to conform to the group norm can have profound implications for decision-making processes and collective behavior. It can lead to the emergence of groupthink, where critical thinking is sacrificed in favor of maintaining unanimity and group harmony. The desire to be liked and accepted by others motivates people to conform to the group's norms and expectations, even if those norms conflict with their own beliefs or values. The Stanford Prison Experiment, conducted by psychologist Philip Zimbardo, provides a stark illustration of the power of group dynamics and conformity to influence behavior. In this study, participants assigned roles as guards or prisoners in a simulated prison environment quickly internalized their roles, leading to escalating levels of aggression and abuse from the guards and submissive behavior from the prisoners. Despite the artificial nature of the experiment, the dynamics of conformity and obedience within the group led to realistic and disturbing outcomes. Consider a scenario where a child grows up in an environment characterized by violence, abuse, and neglect. From an early age, they are exposed to aggressive behavior, witnessing acts of cruelty and injustice within their own family or community. In such an environment, the child's sense of right and wrong may become distorted, and their emotional development may be stunted by chronic exposure to trauma. This upbringing shapes the child's understanding of social norms and values, with aggression and dominance often being rewarded or normalized within their immediate environment. As the child grows older, they internalize these learned behaviors and attitudes, believing that violence and exploitation are acceptable means of asserting power and control over others. Without healthy attachments or supportive social networks, the child may struggle to develop empathy, compassion, and moral reasoning skills, further distancing them from ethical decision-making. As the child transitions into adolescence and adulthood, the impact of their upbringing continues to reverberate through their thoughts, feelings, and actions. They may gravitate towards peer groups that reinforce their antisocial beliefs and behaviors, seeking validation and acceptance from others who share similar experiences of trauma and dysfunction. When communities face systemic injustices or personal adversities, responses to these challenges can vary widely, sometimes leading to harmful actions that perpetuate cycles of violence and oppression. Imagine a community grappling with discrimination, poverty, and lack of access to basic resources. In such contexts, feelings of frustration, anger, and hopelessness may prevail among community members. As a result of experiencing persistent injustices, some may feel compelled to push back against the status quo, resorting civil disobedience or even violence as a means of demanding change or seeking redress for grievances. When communities perceive that the systems meant to protect and serve them are failing, they may lose faith in the legitimacy of authority and the efficacy of peaceful means of conflict resolution. The media holds considerable power in shaping public discourse. influencing cultural norms and shaping individual perceptions of right and wrong. While entertainment media is intended for consumption as fiction, repeated exposure to such content can desensitize viewers to the realities of violence and contribute to the normalization of aggressive behavior. Moreover, the anonymity and echo chambers of social media can exacerbate polarization, facilitating the spread of extremist ideologies and promoting hostile attitudes towards those with differing viewpoints. Media representations of gender, race, sexuality, and other identity markers can perpetuate harmful stereotypes and contribute to systemic inequalities and injustices. For example, the overrepresentation of certain demographic groups as villains or criminals in media narratives can fuel discriminatory attitudes in society. Consider a corporation seeking to maximize profits. In pursuit of this goal, the corporation may engage in practices such as exploitation of labor, environmental degradation, or unethical marketing strategies. While these actions may result in financial gain for the company and its shareholders, they can have detrimental effects on workers, communities, and the environment, contributing to social inequality, environmental degradation, and systemic injustices. Moreover, economic incentives can influence individual decision-making at a personal level. For example, individuals facing financial hardship or economic instability may feel compelled to engage in unethical or illegal behavior in order to meet their basic needs or maintain their standard of living. Psychological defense mechanisms serve as crucial shields against threats to our mental well-being, yet they can also be double-edged swords, sometimes leading to behaviors perceived as evil when they serve to protect harmful actions or distort reality. Imagine a society plagued by collective trauma or widespread injustice. In such an environment, defense mechanisms may arise as coping mechanisms on a societal scale. For instance, denial might manifest as a collective refusal to acknowledge systemic oppression or historical atrocities. Rationalization could lead to the normalization of discriminatory practices under the guise of tradition or cultural superiority. These defense mechanisms, while protecting the collective psyche from the discomfort of confronting harsh realities, can perpetuate cycles of harm. Imagine a community ravaged by war where civilians are exposed to violence, displacement, and loss on a daily basis. In such an environment, traumatic experiences become endemic, leaving deep scars on the collective psyche. Children who grow up in environments characterized by trauma may internalize harmful coping mechanisms and maladaptive behavior patterns from their caregivers, perpetuating the cycle of abuse or neglect into subsequent generations. Societies that have experienced collective trauma, such as genocide or mass atrocities, may struggle to heal from the wounds of the past, leading to ongoing cycles of resentment and retribution. Trauma can fuel ideologies of revenge or extremism, providing fertile ground for the emergence of violent ideologies or movements that seek to redress perceived injustices through force. Dehumanization represents a chilling facet of human behavior, often serving as a precursor to acts of profound evil. It involves the stripping away of the humanity of others, reducing them to objects or subhuman entities, and justifying their mistreatment or exploitation. This process of dehumanization can occur at both the individual and societal levels, perpetuating cycles of oppression, violence, and injustice. Picture a scenario where one group of people views another as less than human, unworthy of dignity, empathy, or basic rights. This dehumanization can manifest in various forms, from overt acts of violence and discrimination to subtler forms of exclusion and marginalization. Dehumanization often serves as a mechanism of social control, reinforcing existing power structures and hierarchies. By labeling certain groups as inferior or otherizing them as outsiders, dominant groups can maintain their privilege and authority. This can lead to the normalization of discriminatory attitudes and behaviors, further entrenching social divisions and perpetuating cycles of harm. When certain groups are dehumanized and vilified, it erodes the bonds of empathy and solidarity that hold societies together. Now, do you believe humans are inherently inclined towards evil, or do you see it as a product of external factors? Share your thoughts in the comment section. Hit subscribe, join our community, And together, let's illuminate the world with the brilliance of understanding. Until next time, remain vigilant against the seeds of evil.